The first thing I noticed wasn't the ocean or the heat or the way my flip-flops sank into the sand, it was the voice. Sharp. Familiar. Calm in a way that didn't ask for attention but commanded it anyway. My eyes are up here. My heart slammed so hard I thought the waves had synchronized with it. I froze, halfway between embarrassment and disbelief, and the only words my brain could produce were, "Yes, ma'am." In that split second, I knew this beach trip was about to change everything, and once you step into a moment like that, there's no walking away the same person. I'd come to the beach to disappear. After months of late nights, missed weekends, and silently swallowing every criticism at work, I needed a place where no one knew me as the junior analyst who never spoke up. I wanted to be just another anonymous body under the sun, someone whose biggest decision was whether to swim or sleep. I was standing there, zoning out, when she walked into my line of sight, confident stride, shoulders back, sunglasses reflecting the sky. I didn't recognize her at first. Why would I? At work, she wore tailored suits and a controlled expression. Here, she was relaxed, barefoot, real. It took my brain a second too long to connect the dots, and that second was enough to get me caught staring. When she removed her sunglasses and looked straight at me, the recognition hit like a punch to the chest. This was my boss. The woman who signed my performance reviews. The one person I never wanted to look foolish in front of. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she laughed, not cruelly, not awkwardly, but softly, like she'd just been reminded of something human. "Relax," she said. "I'm not wearing my boss hat today." I nodded, though my face burned. We ended up talking because leaving would have been even more obvious. We talked about the water temperature, about how crowded the city had become, about how strange it felt to run into someone from work outside the walls that defined us. Slowly, the tension eased. She told me her name the way she never had before, without a title attached to it, and asked about mine as if she didn't already know it from emails and meetings. As the sun dipped lower, the conversation deepened in ways I didn't expect. She admitted the job wasn't easy, that leadership often meant being lonely, that people only saw the authority and never the weight behind it. I surprised myself by speaking honestly, about feeling invisible at work, about how hard it was to believe my voice mattered. She listened. Really listened. Not like a manager checking boxes, but like a person who understood exactly what it was like to be underestimated. When we finally said goodbye, it felt unfinished, like the end of a chapter you know isn't really over yet. I walked away wondering if Monday would erase this moment, or redefine it. And that question followed me all the way home, refusing to let go. Monday came fast. Too fast. The office felt smaller than usual, the air heavier. I avoided eye contact, convinced that pretending nothing happened was the safest option. Then she called a team meeting. My pulse thudded in my ears as she spoke about growth, about creating space for ideas, about courage. And then she did something unexpected. She asked me to share my thoughts on a project I'd quietly contributed to but never led. Every eye turned toward me. The old fear rose up, but something else was stronger. I remembered the beach. The honesty. The way she'd looked at me like my words mattered. I spoke. My voice shook at first, then steadied. I explained my idea, owned it, defended it. When I finished, the room was silent for a beat too long. Then she nodded. "That," she said, "is exactly the kind of thinking we need." The shift was subtle but real. Colleagues leaned in. Questions followed. For the first time, I wasn't just present, I was seen. Later that day, she stopped by my desk. No audience. No power play. "Thank you for trusting yourself," she said. "Don't wait for permission next time." That second chapter didn't end with a promotion or a dramatic speech. It ended with something better, clarity. I realized confidence isn't about never making mistakes, it's about believing you belong in the room, whether you're in a board meeting or standing barefoot on the sand. Meeting my boss on the beach didn't blur boundaries, it stripped away illusions. It reminded me that everyone carries doubts, and leadership starts when someone decides to face them honestly. Sometimes, all it takes is one unexpected moment to see yourself differently. And once you do, there's no going back. Monday morning felt like walking back into a life that had paused without asking my permission. The elevator doors closed, and with them went the version of me who'd stood barefoot on the sand, speaking without fear. The office lights were too bright, the walls too gray, and every keyboard click sounded like judgment. I told myself the beach was a fluke, a strange overlap of worlds that would quietly correct itself. But the moment I reached my desk, I knew something had shifted. I could feel it in the way I sat straighter, in the way I didn't immediately lower my eyes when people passed. I tried to keep my head down. I answered emails, reviewed reports, did everything I'd always done to stay unnoticed. But my mind kept replaying her words, her laugh, the way she'd listened without interrupting. It was dangerous to let that moment mean something, yet impossible to pretend it hadn't. When the meeting invite popped up on my screen, my stomach tightened. Team meeting. Mandatory. I almost hoped she wouldn't be there, almost. She walked in last, calm and composed, the beach version of her tucked away behind professional certainty. If I hadn't met her out there, I would have believed this was the only version that existed. As she spoke, her eyes scanned the room, not in a searching way, but an intentional one. When they landed on me, she didn't linger, but it was enough to send my pulse racing. She talked about change, about untapped potential, about how ideas die when people are afraid to speak. Every word felt aimed directly at the part of me that had stayed silent for too long. Then she said my name. The room tilted. My mouth went dry. For a second, I considered playing it safe, offering something vague, forgettable. But I remembered the ocean. I remembered how it felt to be treated like a person instead of a position. I took a breath and spoke. I talked about inefficiencies everyone complained about but no one addressed. I shared an idea I'd been refining quietly for months. My voice trembled, but I didn't stop. I met her eyes, and she nodded, not encouragement, not approval, just acknowledgement. It was enough. When I finished, I expected the moment to pass, for attention to drift elsewhere like it always had. Instead, questions came. Real ones. People leaned forward. Someone built on my idea. Another challenged it, and I responded without shrinking. For the first time, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. When the meeting ended, something unspoken lingered in the air, respect, maybe. Or possibility. Later that afternoon, she stopped by my desk. No announcement. No audience. Just her, standing there with the same quiet confidence. You did well today, she said. But more importantly, you were honest. I thanked her, unsure what else to say. She paused, then added, don't wait for someone to notice you. Step forward. Even when it's uncomfortable. Then she walked away, leaving behind a silence that felt fuller than noise. That evening, I thought about how close I'd come to staying invisible. How easy it would have been to let that beach moment fade into a funny, awkward memory. Instead, it became a mirror, one that showed me who I could be if I stopped apologizing for taking up space. I realized that confidence doesn't arrive all at once, it grows in small, brave decisions. A choice to speak. A choice to meet someone's eyes. A choice to believe you belong. I never met her on the beach again. But I didn't need to. That moment had already done its work. It reminded me that the lines we draw between who we are and who we think we're allowed to be are thinner than we imagine. Sometimes, all it takes is one unexpected encounter to step into your own voice, and once you do, the world starts listening. Weeks later, I noticed the change not in titles or paychecks, but in posture, mine. I walked into rooms without shrinking, spoke before doubt could stop me, and trusted that my ideas deserved air. She treated me no differently than anyone else, and somehow that meant everything. No special favors, no hidden signals, just quiet respect. One evening, as I packed up to leave, she passed by and said, almost casually, "You're doing good work. Keep going." It wasn't dramatic, but it stayed with me. I realized then that the beach hadn't given me confidence, it reminded me I already had it. And that was the real turning point that in the end, nothing magical happened on paper. No sudden promotion. No applause. No dramatic moment where everything changed at once. But something far more powerful did. I stopped doubting my place. I stopped waiting to be chosen. I showed up as myself, fully, even when it scared me. That beach encounter became a quiet reminder I carried everywhere, that titles fade, walls disappear, and at our core, we're all just people trying to be